Introducing the D'Addario Autolock, made with locking strap ends for an easy-to-use, clip-on system. When you're done, just pull the latch and slide it off. Keep your guitar on lock with D'Addario Autolock.
Hell, fuck yeah. What's going on, everybody? This is Perry with Premier Guitar here in Nashville, Tennessee, and today we have Mike Schleibaum from Be Well. You might also recognize him from Darkest Hour, or if you're as old as me, even Battery, or a slew of other hardcore bands. Mike, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the old Zoom, internet, YouTubes, whatever. I'm happy to be here and talk all about Be Well because I love guitar and, rapping.
Hey, me too. Dude, I'm a fan of Be Well. I love The Weight and the Cost. It's so good. Obviously, if you guys are familiar with the genre, I'm sure you not only know of Mike, but Brian, who is also in Be Well with him, who is, pretty legendary producer in the hardcore and punk rock scene. All right, so right out of the gate, what's it like working with Brian in the setting of a band as opposed to like the studio? Is it different? Is the dynamic different?
Well, yeah, because when Brian is a producer, has his producer's, I don't want to say his producer's hat on, but he has a certain role that he respects and he does very well. And he also can read the band that he's working with very well and kind of mold himself to the situation. But being in a band is a lot different because being in a band is giving of yourself in a particular way. And so I think, yes, he is a different creative character in a band than he is as a producer. But in a lot of ways, like all of his strengths as a producer transfer over. And, I've been lucky enough to have a really long friendship, to work with him creatively on a lot of different projects. And I think what's unique about our situation now with Be Well is he has put in so much time and energy and work into many Darkest Hour records. And over those years, we built a strong trust. And so now
Right.
he's sort of able to take that position in a lot of ways that I had in Darkest Hour, where he is like the main songwriter in a sense, because he is the lyricist and comes up with a lot of the core riff ideas. But it's also unique because me having been that person, I can allow him the oxygen to do that and hopefully supplement that in a way that I think not a lot of people could, because they wouldn't be coming at it from the perspective of someone who's been in his position for 25 years with another band. So I think we sort of have that perfect storm of history that kind of leads us to be able to survive creating a band in your 40s during a pandemic in an age where it's like hardcore.
Well, there's a lot of perspective there for sure, man. So I guess for anybody watching this, they might kind of associate you with like more shredder style guitars and, ESP and V's and stuff like that. But for Be Well, obviously, you're gotta be taking a different approach to tone, I would assume, right?
Well, of course. I mean, first of all, Be Well is a collaborative effort with a whole different group of characters. So, we're definitely going to be taking a different guitar approach, and it's also not melodic death metal. But a lot of the things are very similar to things that I've loved over the years, and because a lot of my playing evolved while working with Brian, a lot of the things I like, a lot of the things he likes, a lot of the things that work in Be Well gear-wise are, although they're not things that I've used for a while in Darkest Hour, are like at home when I'm using them in Be Well, and when he's using them to create, they make total sense to me. And I mean, as we go through like his secrets and the riffs and the gear, you'll see that there's so much of that history intertwined in what's being created now, because a lot of what he's doing creatively is built on the foundation of his hard work as a producer and his writing, because unlike a lot of other people who start a band this late in their career after been not doing it for so long, he's been being creative and he's been writing this whole time. So it's like he's been
crazy.
He's like an artist who's been practicing in the studio forever, and now he's finally willing to show people his paintings. You know what I mean? So I think we're all kind of lucky that he's come back to the table. You know what I mean in that sense.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. I mean, your record is a great hardcore record. I'm into it. I love that, you know, guys your age and my age, for that matter, are still giving a shit. That's fucking awesome, dude. That's so cool. Well, let's start with this guitar in your hands, because that's a beautiful thing. That looks like a pretty thick Les Paul you got there, buddy.
This is a mahogany Les Paul. It is just like every other Les Paul standard that exists. This is my favorite Les Paul because this was a gift from Brian himself. And
wow.
This is the first Les Paul I ever owned myself. And this is also a Les Paul that you will see if you see any photo of me playing guitar live in a band from 2000 to 2006, 2005. This would be the guitar I would be using because I didn't have a lot of guitars. I didn't have any guitar endorsements for a while. You know, I was just a guy in a band, and I only liked this guitar and Les Pauls. So this guitar came to me on the Mark of the Judas, the first Darkest Hour record, but it's also the first full-length record that was produced by Brian, and our first full-length, and it was also the one produced by Brian. And so I was playing an SG at the time, and it didn't sound very good. And Brian was like, man, you need to play a Les Paul. Like, we need, and he had a cherry red one that he still has today that was definitely used on the Be Well record, along with this one and a couple other Les Pauls that have been around from the time that I'm telling you about, which is a really long time, We're talking 1999. But he had gotten this guitar as a second guitar, backup guitar for his band Milltown, which had been signed to a major, which he was trying to do for real when he was living in Boston. This was sort of like what you might consider his last band before Be Well. And this was the second guitar, his backup, and it was in a flood. It had this terrible flood damage that you can see right here. It's pulling the top of the guitar off the guitar. It messed up the front right there. And it also just sort of warped the guitar and made it just super dense. I mean, it's funny that you say it looks heavy, because it is heavy. It's dense. I don't know if there's some physics to how a flood can warp and change a guitar's physical nature, but this guitar feels super heavy. Maybe it's partially the paint or something, but also this flood darkened the tone, and I think it made it so Brian didn't like it. I've replaced this pickup. This is a Seymour Duncan Jeff Beck, but that was what was in the pickup when he gave it to me, and that is what is basically my go-to rock pickup, although Brian is a purveyor of the P90 and lower output guitar pickups. He's super into low gain everything, more about like the playing, kind of an AC/DC mentality. And so the JB is super important to the sound of this, right? And so this is my, Be Well guitar, but this is also like, my guitar, man. This is my favorite Les Paul. And so if we were going to start any Be Well rig rundown, it would be this, because, this is sort of, to me, the story of Brian and I's relationship. He had this beautiful instrument, but he wasn't creating anything with it, and then he sort of gave it to me, and this sort of lit my entire career as a guitar player. And now it's cool because we're sort of full circle, and now I'm like, we're in a band together, and I'm using it to light that fire, kind of thing. So
how cool! So did the flood fuck the neck up at all?
Not really. No. The neck seems pretty dope. This was recently set up by the bass player for Darkest Hour, who is a guitar wizard. Okay, even though he hates them, and this thing is in E, and it sounds like it sounds pretty awesome for a guitar who's been through so much. Let's see. It's a little E chord for you guitar aficionados. So yeah, this is guitar number 1.
Yeah, man, that's great. I love how yellowed it's gotten.
Well, that had a lot to do with the flood and the time and stage lights and stuff, and that's sort of why I like this. But if you look close, you can see there's a little bit of white right there. You see that by the pick? You see that white? It looks like a paintbrush. That is, the guitar is Olympic white. That is the color. The guitar almost was that pickup color.
Right on. So I'm guessing that appeared on the record quite a bit, right?
It did, but, again, Brian he's a lover of the low tone, not a lot of gain, which is something that I've definitely come to. I love. It took me a while because I sort of went down the Gain rabbit hole, the Pantera Gain rabbit hole with Darkest Hour for a while, but I've always appreciated like a really strong right hand, clean Marshall guitar attack tone, you know, and so I think this really kind of helps emphasize that more than anything.
So, you know, I know this guitar means a lot to you. Is this something we might see you playing in the future on Be Well tours, or is this something you'd probably leave at home?
No, I mean, if you saw any video footage of Battery, which is the band that Brian and I did for a while in the 90s, and he started, and he's a hardcore legend for starting, and I'm just a super fan of whatever. We did a tour. We kind of came back out of hibernation and did a tour with H2O this summer, and, last summer, whatever it was, and COVID's rotted my brain, but we were out on tour, and I used a Gibson Les Paul Standard. It's around here, but it's been completely stripped for parts because it was really just destroyed by American Airlines and getting wet and everything. So this is not something I take on tour that much. You know, I'll play it when I can, but it's funny how a guitar will go from being the most trusted workhorse to like so revered in a matter of seconds. But
right.
I'm experimenting with a whole bunch of other things now. Like I said, a little bit lower gain. You know, guitars that might have P90s. I love the ESP product line, so I play around with they have an Eclipse series that is similar to a Les Paul. So I mean, really, I'm searching for something that sounds a little bit cleaner and something that stays in tune really well, because when you're playing a guitar in a band like Be Well and you don't have a locking tremolo, which is like a huge difference from Darkest Hour or a heavy metal band, you really have to pay attention to what's happening. I mean, a lot of the leads, a lot of the voicings require you to play full chords, not just power chords. That means that G string needs to be in tune. So that's another reason why this guitar might not be the one you might see on stage next time.
Well, hell yeah. All right, so we've talked about this Gibson, but you have mentioned, you know, ESP, and I know a lot of people know you as like an ESP player. And I see a whole boat behind you of guitars. So what else is something we might see with Be Well?
This is my Gibson Les Paul Custom. Now this one's a beautiful all black jammer. This one is a 79. Okay, but it's not a 79. It was reissued in 91 as a 79 reissue, so it is a Black Beauty, and everybody thinks it's a 70s guitar, but it's really a 90s, which still is pretty valuable. This is the only Les Paul I have that does not have a headstock break. Also, I just made that up. The white one I haven't broken the headstock on that one either, and this one is broken, so that's where. The white one is the only one that isn't, and this one did get broken. It had a really awesome repair job, so it's hard to remember, but I just saw it when I did the light. But this is what I use live, mainly because I did break the neck, and now I don't feel that bad about using a Gibson Les Paul Custom. You know what I mean?
So if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the Les Pauls from the 70s had kind of a volute on the back of the headstock, right, to prevent, they were trying to stop headstock breakings, right? Does that one have it, or is it completely flat?
No, it looks like it's flat, but it didn't work because it broke right away. So
how did it break?
This one I think was leaned up against the amp, the old classic stupid move.
Fucking fell off the amp.
No. It was more of a side leaner, but okay. This one also has a Jeff Beck pickup in the bridge and just the Gibson Standard in the neck, and it's just kind of that's kind of my setup. If you were gonna like, this is if I could use the time to just break down the setup, these are Ernie Balls. Okay, first of all, Ernie Ball is the only guitar string that I'll buy if I'm at a music store, and I know people are string allegiant. You know, I did have we had a Darkest Hour had an endorsement with SIT strings, and I didn't like them as much as Ernie Ball. And I remember, like, whenever I had to go to a Guitar Center to buy strings because the endorsement was late or something, I would just always buy Ernie Ball. So these are Ernie Ball, regular Slinky, the green pack, right? And I also like to just buy the 7-string pack of that and just keep those 56s and keep a pile of them, because I also use those for other guitars that are in different tunings. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
I have Ernie Ball endorsement, so I'm lucky enough that they'll send me the different gauges and the different things that we can play around with. So this has Ernie Ball strings, just like all the guitars have, and this has a Seymour Duncan Jeff Beck, just like all of the Les Pauls that I have. So I think that's the two unifying features. So let me show you some other Les Pauls real quick. So I'm back now with my gold top. You know what I'm saying? Now, you got to have this bad boy in your collection if you're gonna be like a Les Paul connoisseur. And the question was earlier was about gauges for the strings here.
Sure, yeah.
And the gauges that I use for Be Well, which is tuned to E standard, although I will use this time to tell everybody that Be Well plays live in E flat, because we realize it's sort of a better place like for the vocals to sit. And I think this is a huge thing about the band, is there's a lot of attention paid to like how the vocals sit against the music and how they fit with the music, and so we're not afraid to dip the songs a half step and all work around that, you know. So we're in E flat, but the gauges are a standard set. So I believe the top strings are just like what I would use with Darkest Hours. So they are 10, 13, and 17, right? And then these strings, I believe this is like a 46, a 36, and a 26 or something. It's like 40 something. It's pretty light on the bottom.
That's light.
That's my pack of Ernie Balls right there. Ernie Ball 7-string set. That's what I'm telling you all to buy, because you get that extra bang for the buck for that low guy when you're playing anything low. But anyway, it's 10, 13, 17, like I said, on the highs. So that is also what I would use in drop C. I want my 3 high strings to be those gauges because I want to bend and I want to be expressive with them. I know people talk about getting a wound G string to, keep them in tune or whatever, but to be honest, I just think that's sort of overkill. Like, I want to be expressive with the guitar. And then 46, 36, 26. So I was right.
Yeah. I always feel with a wound G string, it kind of fucks you up for swells or stuff like that too. It's hard to bend.
Yeah, it just doesn't have the same expressiveness. So if you're just playing chords, though, there is a reason to maybe, or if you're only playing octaves and you want them to be super in tune. I have a guitar lying around here that just only has 2 strings on it for recording octaves, and we just use it to only record octaves so that they're super in tune.
That's a fucking trick.
So yeah, this is also a Les Paul with Jeff Beck in the bridge. But the interesting thing about this is it has the vintage cap. And another thing that I've done to this guitar that you're going to see to a lot of my guitars is I hate knobs. Okay? I hate them. I haven't done it. I have not one knob to rule them all. Now, I have not done this with the other Les Pauls because out of respect for the white Les Paul, because it's like, history, and the black Les Paul because it's a black beauty and, obviously classic. This is where I draw the line, though. I love this gold top, but I need this to be the way I want it. So this is just one knob, just a volume knob for both pickups, and that's I don't really use one as a cutoff switch or anything. And I constantly do this, and this is the position where I want my volume for everything, not anywhere else. So I've done this with a lot of guitars, just taking that out.
So that's volume, tone for both pickups?
Yeah, and it's just more of like coming from that sort of like fixed gear bike mentality of like you don't want any problems when you're live, and
That's
you just
true.
want any electronics. But I do see the classic players would use the tone knob and they would get subtle with what they're doing, but for what we do, it's just more important. It's more important not to fuck up.
Totally get it. Yeah, that's gorgeous.
So now I will move to one more Les Paul. I'm back.
Yep.
This is my battery guitar, RIP.
That thing's been to the war and
It's
back,
been
buddy.
ripped apart now. It looks so cool. But man, this headstock it's just been broke so many times, and it just will not. But I love this guitar. This was used on a lot of tours. This was a really good just beater, and man, it has a lot of history, but it's not playable anymore. It's just been broken too many times, and it just, I don't know, but it's cool, little piece of history. And it was probably used, it probably might have been attempted to use on the Be Well record, but it wouldn't stay in tune. And I just wanted to show off, this is a ESP LTD Eclipse, but if you notice, this is sort of like my attempt to like bridge the gap between where I'm going with Be Well and ESP. I don't know if this would get used, but I think it's interesting because I put a Slash pickup set in here, which is also Seymour Duncan. I got a Seymour Duncan endorsement, so, which is interesting because with Darkest Hour I use EMGs, but I really, really love Seymour Duncan pickups, and the people over there are the best. So they give me different types of pickups to play with all the time, and man, that Slash pickup set is so awesome. Like this neck pickup is just like, sounds so good. So this guitar I've taken apart. I took the switch from up here and put it down here, put the volume knob down here, and there's no tone. So it's sort of like a Les Paul where you want, I don't do this because I'm used to Les Pauls, but when you got like action and hardcore, you just don't need anything here, and I like my action here,
Yeah, I've run into that same problem with Les Paul style guitars. I always hit the fucking switch, man. I hate that switch.
And
there.
another thing that I do, this is a secret tip, is I like to break the top of the switch off. Okay? Now look, that makes it harder to move, right? But it makes it also like not hard to hit accidentally. And so it does take a little bit of getting used to while you're playing to actually get your grip on it, to get enough force to move your finger.
Right.
But it's sort of like turns it into more of a recessed switch, and I don't know, it's just another thing that I've sort of adapted to try to just not have any, because I do like to move around, jump around, and get stupid.
Right.
We're gonna break from our Be Well part of the segment for 1 second, just because we talked about this earlier, and this is super exciting guitar wise, so I might as well show it off. This is coming out next week from whenever this gets aired, so this is the first time I've actually like talked about it publicly really with anyone. But this is the Mike Schleibaum Custom LTD Aero, new for 2021, that you can buy yourself. It's got my signature on the back right there. And it is exactly
Slick.
like my ESP custom shop that I've been playing for 2 or 3 years. It is the same specs. It's all mahogany Aero, okay, which makes this is a lot different than a lot of other Aeros, even though it is based off of the traditional design, because I fell in love with this design while on tour with the Aero. So I didn't change the physical shape. It's the same radius. I did change the inlays. As you can see, they're very much like my favorite Les Paul. I'm not supposed to say Les Paul. This is my favorite single cutaway. And got the same inlays, got the same style binding. This is Olympic white, so hopefully it will turn yellow. This is the only ESP LTD that has a matching pick, ring, and binding, if you care about that, but it is cool. And also the only ESP LTD or custom item that has the top hat knob, so kind of just gives it a vintage look with the silver hardware, which exactly matches the single cutaway guitar that I used in the past. And this has the old Floyd Rose, which I love so much, perfect Floyd Rose, and that pickup is the James Hetfield EMG. So that's my favorite heavy metal pickup, and this is my favorite heavy metal guitar. One knob, one pickup. This is it. This is basically the Darkest Hour guitar. So and you can see there's a lot of inspiration from my Be Well hardcore roots. And then there's a little innovation based on the needs you would need, for your playing for like that style. So
now, will this guitar also feature the same contoured neck joint that the ESP models have? Oh, sweet.
Everything's the same, dude. It's so cool.
That's
everything's the
awesome.
same. The placement of the knob, the strap knob, that's like a little different. That kind of sets it. But yeah, I mean, just for fun, we'll show you the original. And I will tell you, we were originally going to antique these. Originally, we were going to like destroy them to kind of make them look like this, but See that one? ESP. This one's been through like hell though. Look at it. How about that part? Hey, thank you for making me an extremely custom, awesome guitar. Allow me to totally break it. But you know, I'm not gonna lie, this is love, but the other one stacks up good. So that's probably too much. That's too much Darkest Hour plugin. So we got to talk. Let's talk about some Be Well.
All right, so back to Be Well. You know, obviously people are going to associate you with like 5150s and high gain amps, but as you were saying earlier, Brian's kind of, you know, and I say not only Brian, but most producers and any producer I've ever worked with is going to always lean towards less gain. You know what I mean? So what amps are you using for Be Well if you're going to tour live right now? Or on the record?
With Brian over the years, we've sort of experimented with all the style of Marshalls. Originally, I was an 800. I'm Marshall 800 all day long. That was my amp. That's what I swore by. I thought if you played a 900, you were crazy, and I thought if you played a JMP, you were just like a lawyer, you know, who had money. But over the years, I've realized that there's a lot of different colors to those amps. You know, the JMP is the predecessor to the 800, so it has like a little bit more low end girth, and it doesn't have all that gain possibility on the top. But when combined with the right guitar, it can provide like a really awesome, clear, full rock guitar tone that might make the 800 seem a little bit smaller in comparison, you know. And so Brian loves the JMP. You know, a low gain JMP is sort of like the standard we would go with, you know. I love the 800, but it was maybe too gainy. And Peter, our other guitar player, he loves the 900. He's loved the 900, and the 900 to me is like if you're kind of going for a more kind of gritty, like almost Guns N' Roses kind of thing. But yeah, I also think it's kind of a nice blend when you get the like marriage of the few of the different amps together too. So with Be Well, we are using basically JMPs. I think it's JMPs on the album entirely. There may have been some overdub of an amp I don't know about that happened at some point that I wasn't there for, but when I was there, we used one Marshall cabinet that I have like left in Brian's care because I think it might be the best one I have, and I believe we used the same cabinet for the whole record too, and I can get you guys a picture of that, and I don't have that here because Brian, he likes to keep that. And then the JMP, we may have even used my 800, but I know we kind of played around with a whole bunch of different ones and blending them, and you know.
Right. Now, if you guys are familiar with Brian or Salad Days at all, you've absolutely fucking heard that JMP. It's on everything. He's got a kind of famous JMP that he's used on the Strike Anywhere records, like all the way back. And I mean, and there's a
I
reason
want
for
that
it.
JMP. I want it. He's got that JMP. He's got this red Les Paul. I mean, he just has the he has the amps and the guitars that are on all your favorite albums, dude.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. So that's so cool that you guys use that, especially, you know, for a bit of a change of pace from what you're normally used to. You know, kind of maybe a little scooped mids. Like a JMP is something totally different. It's all
well.
mid,
I mean,
know?
I like a full range when it comes to a heavy metal sound, but the thing about it is really getting used to the level of gain, and then also getting used to the fact that when Brian composes these songs, he'll almost break the chordal. Well, he does break the chordal structure up between two guitars sometimes. So there'll be like different voices happening in the chords that you really want to sing and hear. That you're just not going to hear without a little bit of depth and clarity. So I think, you know, a lot of what's happening is more subtle, and it's based on him really wanting the musicality of all the chords to sing through. You know, and so was happy to go down whatever tonal road he was going to go down. And, you know, I have a bunch of Marshalls here, all the photos that I'm going to give you of all the different Marshalls that I have that I use here. You'll see I don't just stick with one, you know. I have two JMPs, an 800 and a 900 is a pretty significant mix of vintage Marshalls to be able to decide, like, which one you like, you know.
Yeah, totally. So I guess with that, suppose, you know, obviously COVID has fucked this all up, but once you guys start touring full time, if you were to take a JMP, would you compensate live with maybe like an overdrive or some sort of boost to kind of get you where you want to be, or is that something where you would just crank the fucking amp and maybe use like attenuation?
We've been
or
playing
something?
with some overdrive pedals. I actually have this really cool overdrive pedal I want to tell you about real quick. Check this out. So basically, I don't use overdrive pedals that often because I do really I want it to be as simple as possible. But clearly you do have to experiment maybe to get that boost for the leads and stuff. So
Sure.
my approach to Be Well as far as a pedal board and everything has been just honestly, do nothing. Like I want that straight Ian MacKaye setup. Guitar, amp, clip-on tuner one time before you play and that's it. Nothing, right? But since Brian likes to compose and layer like a beautiful symphony of swirls and harmonic layers that are happening under these songs. Like if you were to mute the instruments, if you were to mute the rhythm guitars on this album, you would hear almost like a U2 Cure record happening with a driving bass line that's super melodic. The guitars are there, but there's so much happening, and so he's been pushing me to build a pedal board to bring those aspects into the band live. And I was resistant because I think I was just totally reactionary to my vibe with Darkest Hour, which was do all these effects, do it like the album, have all these different changes that you do. So I'm trying to meet in the middle, and I'm making a Be Well pedal board as we've created the band and we've evolved. And I do have a pedal board. I do have a bunch of pedals that I use for Be Well. I'm going to tell you all about, but first I'm going to tell you about overdrive pedals because I want to tell you all about Brian McTernan, uber secret #1 that you got to know about. But first, this is one of my favorite overdrives. This is Seymour Duncan Boost. Okay, yes, I am endorsed by Seymour Duncan, so whatever. But this thing will not color your tone very much, but really get you just up. Get you up above everything, and that's what I like about it. It doesn't do too much. You know what I mean? And then this was made by Matt Michael, who's the guitar player for the band Majority Rule, and No Man, local guy. This is a awesome, I don't know, it's kind of a Rat overdrive, what's that, Tube Screamer kind of combo. I don't know, sort of a clone thing. It's just a little bit of gain and volume. And I really like this one. He gave me another one that I've used for a bunch of Be Well practices that seem to work pretty good. That's the same thing with a little a plus, like a compression, distortion kind of boost thing that I've seen Peter mess with. Peter will use both of these. So we like the fact that Matt's trying some new things so that we can color the stuff. And again, we're talking about using it more as a boost than to color the sound. But I sort of lied when I said we would never use a distortion pedal or overdrive pedal would Be Well because we're against gain. Because what we do love to use and have loved to use ever since me and Brian been hanging is the Turbo Rat pedal. Do you see this pedal? This is the Turbo Rat.
Classic.
Now, the Turbo Rat is the secret to the 90s DC hardcore metalcore birth, okay? This is the pedal that gave you Damnation AD. And this is also the pedal, the Brian McTernan Rock Zone pedal. Now, a lot of you will get this and you'll go what? How do I set this thing? It sounds like bullshit. I mean, to be honest with you, I bought one of these because every dude I saw at the time was using it. I fucking hated it. I was like, this thing sounded terrible. It wasn't until I got in the studio with Brian that I realized that this is not supposed to be the driving force of the tone. This is more of to color. To help,
a compliment,
to really bring it all together. So the Brian McTernan setting is this, okay? Basically, okay. He's gonna kill me, but so see that distortion all the way up, volume just barely down, and that filter right there, right? Seems weird, seems counterintuitive, but this drives it just with a little more bite, just with a little more color. I mean, you can see I've drawn on there this setting, which is probably something I did at some point when I needed it to sound really different. But the reality is that this is the setting of Mark of the Judas. is the setting on a whole bunch
Wow.
of battery records. Although Ken Olden also would be the setting on a bunch of other records Brian's probably produced over the years, like this plus a Marshall. That setup plus just a Marshall on 5 everywhere is just killer. And if you're into like Damnation AD or any of the heavier bands that were a little bit more metally, the Ken Olden setup was that bad boy, just straight at 12. Just straight at 12. Now, this sounds pretty gnarly when you do it, but I love this pedal. I love the Turbo Rat. I got like 4 or 5 of them because I was convinced they all sounded a little different. But if I had to use a pedal to color a Marshall, it would be this. If, I would start with this always and compare every one of those to this. But this does not give me volume boost necessarily. It can, but it's not really the right way. So that's why I haven't totally stayed with this pedal.
Well, that's a fun little trick. Good to know. Good to know. All right, Mike. Thank you for the rat tip there. That's a very good tip. As far as modulation effects, are you guys using a ton? I mean, maybe there's a little delay here and there, but what do you guys got going on as far as effects?
Well, again, I'm on the quest to keep things simple, but Brian, he's got a vision for where he's going harmonically, so we meet in the middle. So really, the pedal board starts with, I like to use a wireless, but we're just going to start with the effect part of it. So the number one effect I think you're probably going to hear on the album is delay. And I'm holding up this green Line 6 delay pedal because although Brian may use a couple different delays, this pedal right here is the delay pedal. I had to go make sure I went and bought another one of when we started doing this band. Okay? Because this pedal does all of the Brian McTernan tricks that he likes to do. It has a tap tempo, which is perfect. It has the ability to save a few different ones, which is killer. It has all these knobs that allows you to turn them. So like, tweak and tweeze and move the mix knob and make all sorts of fun noises. So this is the delay pedal you'd hear on any of the early Darkest Hour records he produced from us. It's also one you'd hear on a lot of the albums he produced for a long time. I mean, this pedal I would always see the lights on. Maybe even used it, I don't know, vocals, also bass, who knows? Like this thing gets used. So
those things are so fucking awesome. It's funny that, I mean, that's got to be what Line 6 is probably most famous for, is that pedal, and it's what, 20 years old?
It's just awesome, and I have a bunch of other pedals that have tap tempo and have whatever, but they don't have all the things that make this what I need. Because even the tweak and tweeze, they kind of color it like almost like a little chorusy, just, I don't know, you can even play with that. So this is the main effect. I mean, we've talked about a boost, we've talked about distortion a little bit. I told you I used a wireless, but this would be the effects we would use, this. And then also one other pedal that's super important that I've never remembered to use, but I'm learning to use, is a volume pedal. You know why this is important, kids? Because this allows you to have this thing called dynamics, which, I don't know a lot about because I've been playing melodic death metal, but is important for a band that has full-on Marshalls to be able to back off and have quiet parts, loud parts, things that intermingle. So this right here is another tool that I think a lot, it's not, super sleek or going to win a bunch of awards because it's, fun. But I think it's important to remind people that this plus a delay pedal gives you infinite possibilities with like swelling and all sorts of cool stuff you can do. And I don't know, this is a pretty cool pedal. Also has like the alternative tuner out, so you can kind of like have a different routing super easy that I've seen a lot of people use. And so this is the only other pedal that's on the board besides all that. I don't use a noise gate or suppressor for Be Well, although for every other band I've ever done I probably had to use like 4. But this one, it's a simple effect setup. It's simple, even though there is a lot of layering, I'm going to tell you guys a secret. Brian hates chorus, period, as an effect. I mean, maybe he'll write down in the comments that's not true or something, but I know that he does not like when you put chorus on anything. He also is not a big fan of the wah. Now, I know this might make it sound weird because he's a producer, you shouldn't rule anything out, but he just, stylistically, it's just like, it's not his gravitation, especially if it's his band, So there are
Yeah.
effects that we don't really go into the world of because they're just not stylistically something Brian's drawn to. But I do think we could eventually use all sorts of stuff like maybe flanger and phaser, and there are other effects we could use. Oh, that reminds me about another pedal that Brian uses that he's done in all of his producing that we probably used all over the Be Well record. But the funny thing about it is that I always get it wrong, so I'm gonna have to give you a photo of it. And I swear it's a Boss pedal. I think it's a Super Shifter, but it has the delay in it. Okay, so we're gonna show you a picture, and then you're gonna be like, "Oh, that's what Mike was talking about." Okay, well, I'm gonna tell you, this pedal is this. This is the cave-in sound, like, you know, when it sounds like that all that stuff's layered in each single note, and Steve's singing along with it. You know, this is that sound hiding under there. You mentioned the Dead to Fall album that I produced with Brian. A lot of the layers that help to make the guitar seem heavy are layered with this pedal. So although this pedal isn't on my pedal board, this is, I think, an important pedal to mention in a Be Well rig rundown because it could be seen used for sure.
I mean, I love a phase shift, and we've done a rig rundown with Mutoid Man, of course, with Steven.
Oh yeah.
And,
So did Steve talk about it?
Yeah, he's got fucking 2 on his board.
There you go.
Which is so. Yeah,
Is that?
Yeah. It's a great.
Does he
pedal.
have 2 because that way he can do different keys without turning turning down?
Yeah, he has one that phase shifts down and one that phase shifts up, and he does all this really cool shit with
So
it.
you already
So
got
if
you
guys
already
haven't-
got all the info
Yeah.
on your channel.
It's good. If you guys haven't seen that rig rundown with Brodsky, you should definitely check it out. Mutoid Man rig rundown. It's super fun. Yeah, man, those are great tricks. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and run us through your guitars. I'm super excited about your signature Arrow, dude. That's awesome.
Dude, well, everybody get online, get yourself one from the, ESP dealer of your choice, musician's friend, Sweetwater. Like, you've got to buy it through a distributor, but it helps me when people buy it, and it's cool to see them making a guitar that isn't flat black or a random wood grain. You know, I think it's pretty specific to heavy metal players, but there's a lot of classic influence there, and I think, you know, people who love that style of guitar, as I do, will enjoy the guitar a lot, you know.
Hell yeah. All right, well, Mike, before I let you go, I think it's worth noting that, you know, obviously you've had a super successful career playing in bands, but you do a lot of compositions for like TV and stuff. Like, I was watching randomly a show on Iwo Jima, and I saw your name in the credits, and I was like, that can't be the same, Mike. Like, there's no fucking way. And then I started digging a little bit, and it turns out you've done a shitload for Discovery Channel and Nat Geo and all that stuff. So what's your process with that stuff? Like, that's just all in studio, obviously. What are you using for that sort of stuff?
I'm a lover of Pro Tools. That's pretty much what I grew up learning as far as like a DAW workstation or whatever. I basically, I wouldn't say mentored. Yeah, I would say mentored. Interned, swept the floor over at Salad Days for years, trying to copy everything Brian did. For years, he tried to like figure out how to teach me the shit so he could go home at 5 and I could do what I need to do. But you know, no one can do it as good as Brian, and you know, I've got a unique set of talents, so let's just put it at that. Either way, I learned a lot about Pro Tools, and at the same time, my wife is heavily immersed in the Washington, D.C. production scene because we have a huge collision of like National Geographic, Discovery Channel, the Smithsonian Channel, all here in D.C. making content. So it's just the thing that happens in DC, and since I happen to be a person who can compose in Pro Tools, I found my way into these projects. And so I use Pro Tools 11 and 12 to import video and compose to. I like to use Kontakt, Reason, all sorts of, you know, Superior Drummer, Guitar Rig, I mean, anything. When it comes to like making music for a television show, I'm a complete mercenary. I have zero opinions except for I want to get paid and I want the person creating the show to like it. Mainly because I know that when I'm when I have the vision creatively, I don't want people that stand in the way. I want people that add and push it forward. So if I'm making music for a television show or something, I'm not coming at it like, what would be cool. I'm coming at like, what's your vision? How do I emphasize that? So I think I've done well in the world because I don't have the impulse to like want to interject a creative idea in the same way some people do. So I found myself getting a bunch of these projects that were, you mentioned the flags at Iwo Jima. I also did one about World War II veterans that came to see the monuments for Smithsonian Channel. I did a bunch of stuff for Shark Week. I've done a bunch of stuff about like following the photo, something like Follow the Photo, story behind the photo for Nat Geo. I did a Marilyn Charles Manson documentary. That was pretty interesting. I think probably the creepiest thing I ever did was it wasn't about Iwo Jima, but it was about the bombing of the end of World War II when we dropped the atomic bomb, and they had to have these soldiers, basically American soldiers. The deal was, we don't know what we just did, this atrocity. We're going to have to send some soldiers in there to study the radiation, to figure out what happened. So part of the peace treaty is we're going to send these soldiers, these American soldiers who think the war is over, we're going to send them to where we dropped the bomb, and we're going to make them, with Geiger counters and video cameras, document everything, so that we as Americans won't be charged with war crimes, and we can help them rebuild their nation after we destroyed it. So the entire show, it's History in HD, that's the show. And the entire show is they take the GI's cameras that were on 35 millimeter and they developed them into HD. And so I was quested with the task of, hey, can you add some really droney, eerie, somber, crazy music to this HD footage of the first atomic bomb being dropped? We're going to give you hours of the footage, and we want you to sit at your house and compose it and send it to us. I almost lost my mind because it's horrific footage. It's awful. And then when you start putting like music to it, it becomes so emotional. And it was just like, it was a really tough show to make. And I'm like sitting there thinking like, I'm making documentary shit. Why is this so emotional? And history can be emotional, and those shows can be, and it's hard to realize that because you just want fast action TV. So I love that I've had a chance to dabble in that and explore that, and it's been a good crutch to when the band shit wasn't making a lot of money. But I'm definitely focused on the bands and the VRL record that's coming out, and I basically do this band in Darkest Hour, and then that's it. Try to be a dad. So
shit, Mike, you're the busiest man in show business, dude. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time to talk to us. You guys got to go listen to The Weight and the Cost right now. It's freaking awesome. And also, we got another full length coming out from you guys sooner than later.
Oh yeah,
right?
Well, Be Well is adapting to the times. We're gonna be figuring out what to do, but like everyone else, we sort of had to readjust to the way COVID hit, And one thing that I know we have enjoyed doing, even though this has been sort of dark times, is we love to get together. We have a band practice at least once a month, even though we have to follow like all the guidelines, like wear a mask, like talk to each other about who's doing what. Everybody's been pretty safe, and our biggest risk is usually getting together when we do. And, trying to follow the rules and is find a way to get together while we can. And we have been writing music. In fact, I'm shocked with the level of not only quality but volume of songs that we have and ideas that Brian's been able to push out. And it's hard because your impulse is to not want to cannibalize off this great album that you've put out, but at the same time, like as an artist, all you want to do is put the next one out. Like who cares? We already put out. We already put out that painting. You guys can stare at it all day, but we're over. What are we supposed to do? Be Well isn't like other bands where the driver for merchandising and imagery and their social media and stuff is like, oh, they make some music and then they get to live the life. I mean, we're sort of like the complete opposite, where we like all we do as people is create this music, and what we really love is hardcore punk. And when it's hard to do when you're in your 40s and in 2020. So what is even that? You know what I mean? True hardcore punks are going to wrestle with what even that idea is, So
Sure.
we just kind of like are destined to do regardless. And I think that's why the albums are honest. And I think inside the genre, that's going to resonate with a lot of people because that's the best hardcore music is that, you know.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, man. Well, again, thanks for your time. You guys make sure to subscribe and follow, all that fun shit. Go listen to that new Be Well record. Go like and subscribe to all their shit online, as well as Darkest Hour. And if you're a hardcore kid and you're young, go listen to Bad
Yeah, oh
News.
yeah, and
Fucking
follow all those bands on Spotify too. I know people talk a lot of opinions about whether the royalty counts matter or not, but Spotify is an awesome way for us to have been reaching new people. And anytime people add us to their playlists or they follow us on that, it really does, like, maybe even more than on your Instagram and on your Facebook making a post about this band you love. So one thing that people can do they don't even know about is follow the band over there on Spotify, share it. We do realize you could do a lot more for the band if you buy one of these millions of variants and t-shirts we have. But the music is what we love the most and we think is the most valuable thing we have to offer. And Spotify is a medium to get to people that don't have it. And the most important thing to us is like connecting with people with the band. And so we encourage people to use that medium regardless and share the band, experience the band, and we're going to continue to make music and put out all sorts of crap for you all to buy whenever you want, you know, through all the avenues we have for that.
Well, hell yeah, guys. You heard the man. Do it now. We'll see you guys later. Thanks so much.